prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child rearing, the millennial generation, trends in society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live, this is Point of View. And now,
Nick Pitts.
And welcome to Point of View. I am your host, Nick Pitts, for this Millennial Roundtable on this Tuesday, May 21st, 2019 day. I am so grateful to be here with you all again. And if you were listening yesterday, yes, I am taking over Point of View. Just kidding. There is no chance I'm taking this thing over. No one wants that to happen. But nevertheless, Kirby is off today. And so you're putting up with me for the next little stretch. And so I'll be joined the audience yesterday, and I will be hosting today. And then I'll also be here on Thursday. But today we like to give emphasis to millennials. And so we are so excited that you've decided to join us, and we've got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking with Bill Waybourn here in a little bit. He's a Tarrant County sheriff. He's going to give us some insight on some of the local issues. Specifically, I'm really interested to talk with Sherriff Bill about the human trafficking epidemic that tends to be very heavily saturating here, the DFW Metroplex. But one of the interesting things that's happening here in the DFW is that there's been great efforts that have been done because of individuals like Bill Waybourn that have really decided to work together with nonprofit entities and to be able to make a difference, not only to help rescue these women and these victims from this life of human trafficking, but also to bring to justice these individuals that perpetuate this evil system. So really looking forward to talking with Sheriff Bill about that. And then we'll also have a couple of other issues that we're going to be talking about. Specifically, we've got Robert Smith and his gift to Morehouse College. I'll have Monica Zuniga that's going to be joining me a little later on. And I think it's going to be a really interesting conversation on, one, the power of this gift. It's an individual that was the commencement speaker for Morehouse College, and during his commencement address, forever raised the bar for commencement speeches by saying that he is going to pay the student loan debt of each one of the 390 plus students that were graduating from Morehouse College. Estimates indicate that it was around $40 million worth of student loan debt. There was an interesting piece, as you would expect, in the New York Times, specifically by their op-ed board, that decided that the reason why this was such a glaring, beautiful thing is because of the atrocious public policies that have been put into place that place an onerous weight upon students. And so I want to ask a couple of questions about that, especially as we're entering into the 2020 campaign season, specifically with regards to is it necessary today for students to go to college? Is it too financial burdensome, cumbersome for students to be able to assume all of that debt? And then 3, what are some ways forward? Really looking forward to having Monica on in the 1 o'clock hour to talk about that. As you know, as those of you who know, I'm just going to pretty much argue the opposite side that Monica takes. And so I think it should be a fun little conversation on that. And then we'll talk also, there was a Wall Street Journal article that indicated that millennials are playing catch up now. You would think that this would be something that we would not be talking about anymore, but nevertheless, the Wall Street Journal had a great article, almost like just a really in-depth, long-form article about some of the data points that indicate that millennials are still catching up relative to wage stagnation that's happening, relative to underemployment, relative to family life. And so we're going to take a look at some of those and not only highlight some of these data points, but also try to get to the why component. Why is this happening, and what are some of the ramifications of it happening as well? And then finally, we'll take a look at what's increasingly becoming more prevalent here in the U.S., which is just the pessimistic attitude. I highlighted it a little bit in the daily briefing this morning, but I think there's more to it, and we'll get to it. Again, this was an article out of Bloomberg that just indicates that there's just a pessimism relative to life, and that was a study that was put out by Deloitte earlier this week. And so we're going to take a little bit of time looking at that as well. But before we go ahead and get started or move any further, we're going to continue on and just look at some of the top headlines that are kind of populating the newspapers this morning. And so let's take a look, shall we? So federal judges have decided to have sided with Congress in the legal fight over President Trump's financial records, according to CBS News. Federal judge sided with Democratic-controlled congressional committee on Monday, ordering President Trump's accounting firm to comply with a subpoena and turn over his long-sought financial records. This decision is likely to escalate the showdown between Democratic lawmakers and the White House. The district court judge ruled in favor of the House Oversight Committee in its subpoena, calling for the firm which handles the president's accounting to disclose President Trump's financial records dating back to 2011. He said the president and his lawyers could not prevent the accounting firm from complying with the panel's request. For those on the right, they view this as weaponizing this code, that this congressional committee that's chaired and led by Democrats is weaponizing policies and procedures in order to be able to work out their vendetta against the president. Those on the left, Democrats, are just saying they're simply abiding by the rules of the law, operating within their purview to be able to force what has traditionally been done by presidential candidates dating back to, I believe, Nixon in 1971. And so one of the fascinating things of what we found out yesterday, coincidentally, President Trump directed former White House counsel Don McGahn to defy a congressional subpoena. And then a federal judge directed President Trump to comply with a subpoena. But should President Trump hand over his financial records? Interestingly enough, a 2017 survey found that 80% of Americans are uncomfortable sharing their salary with peers. 80% of Americans, an overwhelming majority of Americans, are uncomfortable sharing their salary with peers. A Harvard study asked participants how much they would be willing to pay to learn a coworker's salary. This was my favorite. The median response was $13. Congress is willing to go to court, but most Americans are willing to give up a trip to Applebee's in order to get the financial disclosures. Opinions vary on this issue, but the story illuminates the tenor of the environment. Arthur Brooks recently highlighted a study which concluded that today's Republican and Democrat divide is at an intensity level comparative to the Palestinian and Israeli divide. This morning, I think it's important for us, rather this afternoon, it's important for us to continue to pray for our leaders as Paul outlined to Timothy in 1 Timothy 2, 1-2. They may disagree with federal judges today relative to the subpoenas that have been issued, but one day we'll all stand before a perfect judge and no one will be able to defy his ruling. But we've got to go to a break. But when we come back from the break, I'm going to introduce you to a special friend of mine that I was introduced to this morning. Her name, Carly. What is she? A Muppet. And the significance of this Muppet on Sesame Street. We're going to talk a little bit about that when we come back from the break. But know that when we come back, we're going to be opening up the phone lines as well. I'll be really interested. Maybe the question should be, after we introduce Carly into the mix, is we'll talk about whether President Trump should comply with the Congressional Committee's subpoena to hand over his financial records. Do you think he should? Do you think he shouldn't? Call in 800-351-1212. Again, that number is 800-351-1212. Or you can go to the website, pointofview.net, to be able to find out more information on that article, or jump over onto the Facebook page. Join the conversation as it's happening right now. www.facebook.com/pointofviewradio. See the live video feed right underneath that. Put your question or comment. What you share online, we'll share over air, and we'll be back right after this.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
American credit card debt has now topped $1 trillion, and most of the people in debt don't pay off their credit cards and thus pay very high interest rates. But never fear. Socialists, Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez have introduced legislation to provide some relief. Their bill would limit what credit card companies could charge in interest rates. Although the Bible and even various theologians have warned against usury, I don't think that is the origin of their concern for the Loan Shark Prevention Act. Instead, they merely think that government should be a solution to any social problems in society. Most Christians would instead suggest that providing biblical counseling on money would be a better solution. High interest rates are being charged by credit card companies, but also by payday lenders. In previous commentaries, I've talked about how some of these groups prey upon poor Americans who need to borrow money before their next paycheck. These interest rates being charged seem exorbitant until you realize that some of the people borrowing money have a poor track record in repaying the loan. By the way, these two socialists aren't through. They also want the U.S. Postal Service to provide basic banking services so that poor people don't have to pay banks a monthly service fee. This would be the same U.S. Postal Service that loses about $5 billion each year and lost a record $15 billion in 2012. Let's just say that the post office might not be the best model for sound financial management, and postal workers don't need to be given the responsibility of becoming bank tellers. These bills and proposals once again illustrate the mindset of some members of Congress who are convinced that the best solution to any social, political, or economic issue is more government. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For a free copy of Kirby's booklet, A Biblical View on Anti-Semitism, go to viewpoints.info/anti-Semitism. Viewpoints.info/anti-Semitism.
You're listening to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
And welcome back to Point of View. I am your host, Nick Pitts. We are going to be shortly joined by Sherriff Bill Waybourn here in studio here shortly, talking about some of the issues that are kind of percolating around the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Really interested to talk to Sherriff Bill a little bit more about the human trafficking kind of plague that is kind of populating here around the DFW right now, specifically in the U.S. I believe we've got around 319,000 individuals, and I know here in Texas we have a problem as well. And so what does that look like, and what are some of the efforts that Tarrant County officials are going to? I can tell you this. I have an opportunity to serve on a board of an organization called Traffic 911. Traffic 911 is dedicated to being an advocate for victims to help bring restoration and healing to them from the moment that police officers rescue them out of slavery, but then also to walk with them as they make their way into health. And one of the things I've been so impressed by, just on reports of some of our team, is the great work that Tarrant and Dallas County officials are doing in order to, one, identify individuals that are enslaved, two, to bring to justice individuals that are perpetuating these injustices and this enslavement, and then three, the great work of these of nonprofit NGOs as well as local officials, government officials, working hand in hand in order to be able to bring individuals out of this type of just epidemic that is just raging right now here in the U.S. I've just been so impressed by their efforts and really excited to talk to Sherriff Bill here shortly when he joins us in studio. But I also want to introduce you to somebody. now I alluded to it in the previous hour, and I think this is someone you often hear it say, this is a person that needs no introduction. Well, this is someone that needs an introduction simply because she just was created literally earlier this week. And so I'd like to introduce you to Carly, who is the newest Sesame Street Muppet in foster care. According to CNN, the center of the new initiative is a Muppet named Carly, who's a yellow-haired friend of Elmo's who introduces viewers to the concepts of for now parents. Carly's foster mom explains to Elmo that Carly's mother's having a hard time and that they will keep her safe until her mommy can take care of her again. In the video, Elmo innocently asks when that will be, to which Carly's foster mom explains that they're not sure. But what we do know is that Carly belongs here now. We want her to stay with us. One interesting statistics is, unfortunately, there's more than one Carly here in the U.S. According to research, we found that there are 443,000 foster children here in the U.S. On average, they remain in state care for roughly 2 years. The average child, when they enter, is at age 8 years old. One of the fascinating things we found is that in 2017, more than 690,000 children spent time in the foster care system, working their way in and out. On average, they stay in the system for 2 years. And unfortunately, 6% of children in foster care have languished there for 5 or more years. And so one of the things is that I'm, especially for my Christian convictions, is what would it look like if the church took these kids off the state's hands? You see, there may be approximately 443,000 Carlys, but here in the U.S., there are 300,000 churches and over 240 million individuals that proclaim the name of Christ. What would it look like if one church took one child and took seriously James's admonition that pure and undefiled religion is this, that you would care for the orphan and the widow and remain unstained by the world? Children are gifts from the Lord. Some gifts may be too much at the moment, but you never throw away a gift. Rather, you re-gift, finding someone who will cherish that gift. Adoption is that re-gift. It's an earthly echo of a heavenly reality. Adoption brings close those who were once far away. A parent chooses a child, prepares for the child, and brings the child in as one of their own. It is costly, but worth it. Some adoptive families will pay up to $40,000 for their child. But God gave his life so that he might adopt us as sons and daughters. In his abounding love, he brought near those who were far away. He has prepared a place for us and wants to bring us home to him. But in the meantime, he calls us to make ourselves home here, specifically to make his kingdom come and his will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Make our heavenly home come down here to earth. And while we wait here on earth, and as we make ourselves at home, perhaps we can open up our homes to the Carlys that find themselves in this world. But that's not the only thing that's making news today. There was another social science research that I found to be so interesting relative to optimism here in the American experiment. There's a new study that discovered the trajectory of optimism in life. Scientists found that optimism tends to be lower for people in their 20s, then goes up through the 30s and 40s until peaking in the 50s, with 55 being the peak age of optimism. After that, it starts to gradually decline. The authors called this an inverted U-shape with a peak in late midlife. Previous studies showed a similar trend is followed by other positive personality traits such as self-esteem and satisfaction with life. Interestingly, the researchers also discovered that being optimistic is not necessarily tied to the kind of events that happened in your life. That got me thinking optimism tends to be lower for people in their 20s, and I guess that's often been defined as that age in which you're hustling, right? It seems as though you're working and you're working and you're working and you're not necessarily getting anywhere. You're not getting you think you're on top of the world, but you're keenly reminded that you are not on top of the world as you go get coffee for your boss. But it tends to go up as you make your way into your 30s, 40s, and then peaking when you're in your 50s. Interestingly, when you're peaking in your 50s, you have this opportunity to be able to see the time-tested talents and skill sets that have gone into arduous work have bore fruit during that time. It goes back to what Malcolm Gladwell would say, that 10,000 hours makes you someone that is a professional now, that's moving towards perfection. So, interestingly, 4% of Americans consider themselves pessimistic, whereas 50% find the glass to be half full. There was even one study that coined the term optimism bias, describing those who believe they're less likely to experience difficulty and more likely to attain success than reality suggests. Optimism, according to research, motivates you to pursue goals and increases levels of happiness. However, it can also be detrimental, specifically leading to poor decision-making. The optimism also has this propensity to make the red flags lose their hue when you wear rose-colored glasses. Don't look too much further than American Idol to be able to see this. That even on American Idol, we see individuals that might not necessarily have the talent to be able, and might not have the chops to be able to make it to the next round. But optimism propels them to go before the judges like Katy Perry, and I don't even know, is Randy Jackson still on? Is Randy Jackson? No, he's not. It's been forever since I've watched it. I've been a Kelly Clarkson. Since you've been gone. I guess they've already been gone. But nevertheless, optimism can lead us into detrimental situations. Emily Dickinson likened optimism to a bird in your soul singing a never-ending tune without words. In the Bible, we read about a God who placed his spirit inside of us, reminding us of the teachings of Jesus. Specifically, trouble awaits us, persecution will come for us, and fiery ordeal looms just ahead of us. But the beautiful reality we have as those who have seen the end understand that the immediate future does not look bright, but eternity looks glorious. We have a reason to be able to celebrate. But we've got to go to a break right now. And so if you're optimistic or if you're pessimistic, if the glass is half empty or glass is half full, there's a reason to be able to be optimistic, because I'm going to be joined here after the break by Sherriff Bill Waybourn. Bill began his career in service when he joined the U.S. Army in 1978, serving in both the active duty and on reserves. In his 31 years as chief of Dalworthington Gardens here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, he's testified on a number of cases as an expert witness, pioneered the Texas model for DWI no refusal program, which has been credited with lowering fatality and DWI rate, and is now being used as a model for several surrounding states as well. He's testified before the state legislature on a diverse array of issues relating to Second Amendment and civilians carrying firearms. He worked with the state legislature on Texas' original concealed handgun license laws in the 1990s, as well as the most recent open carry law that passed in 2015. Bill's honored to have helped Chris Kyle bill become a law in Texas, a bill that streamlines the process for military service men and women to become police officers. We're going to be joined by Sherriff Bill here after the break, but you're going to need to stick around. But while you do, you can find out more information on Sherriff Bill on our website at pointofview.net, or you can be sure to tune in to the interview and actually see us on Facebook at facebook.com/pointofviewradio. But we'll be back right after this.
There is no more dangerous time than when things are going well. Remember Elijah on Mount Carmel? Fire came down. There was no doubt who was God, but what happened next? He went from amazing faith to a time of great fear and depression. Many Christians have been very thankful a certain Democratic candidate for president was not the one to nominate two replacements for the Supreme Court. But as with Elijah, times of great victory are also times of great danger. Moments like this are not the time to take it easy. This is not the time to let our guard down. This is a time to double down on our work in the community, to serve and pray and plan and invest in a better future. This is the time to join Point of View's Truth Team 360 to make sure today's promising gains are not lost tomorrow. Show your commitment to our future by visiting pointofview.net/team or call 800-347-5151. Ask to join the Truth Team. Pointofview.net/team and 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is
Nick Pitts.
And welcome back to Point of View. I'm your host, Nick Pitts, for this Tuesday, May 21st, 2019 edition of Point of View, the Millennial Roundtable. And we have a guest with us now here in studio. We got Sherriff Bill Waybourn. Bill, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Nick, and it's a pleasure and honor to be with you.
So great to have you here, Sherriff Bill. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I live in Tarrant County. I'm
Okay.
the sheriff of Tarrant County, and I've been in law enforcement 38 years. And prior to that, I was in the U.S. Air Force. I have a bachelor's degree from Dallas Baptist University.
Hey, I don't mind that at all. I like that.
Yeah, from probably way back before, Nick, that you might have been in school. And but it was a great campus then, and it's a great campus now. And I have a master's degree from Trinity, not Trinity here in San Antonio, but out of Indiana, and in conflict management. And so education has been important all my life, and we believe that what we do is ministry through law enforcement. My wife Laura and I live in Tarrant County. We have 10 children, 8 of which are adopted.
Phenomenal.
And it's been a blessed ride.
So Sheriff Bill, I was looking over some of your biography. We were sharing it right before you came on air. One of the interesting things is you served with Dow Worthington Gardens for a significant period of time, and then there was a transition that happened just recently. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was blessed to be with Dow Worthington for 34 years, and 31 of it I served as their chief out there to those good citizens, and that for the majority of that time I was the chief of police, chief of fire, and chief of their EMS services and jail. And, grew up a bunch of kids there and had a great time there, and it was a great time of life. And then I able to retire there in late 2015 in order to run for this next adventure called politics and being a Tarrant County sheriff.
That's phenomenal. So what led to that decision? Was there certain, like I know that many of our listeners probably are entertaining that idea potentially of running one day. They're thinking about what leads someone or maybe they're thinking what leads someone as they come to the end of a particular season to want to ramp up, and especially in this political climate, it seems like it's a very arduous task.
Well, it can be, and I will tell you that it was a conviction that I saw the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office as it could do so much more than what it was doing with the resources that it had, and saw that from a police chief standpoint, looking toward as a customer, and had seen it linger there for a long time, and thought, this is what I want to do. But it was a fire in the belly, and it was with incredible prayer and incredible support of a wonderful wife and a wonderful family and a group of friends that with a great deal of prayer, prayer, and prayer. And when you're led to do it, you jump out there and you run with it, and you pray that it was really God that was speaking to your heart. In this case, it was, and He brought victory.
That's phenomenal. And so, as your time that you've served as a sheriff of Tarrant County, help us to understand what are some of the issues that are percolating right now that you're dealing with in Tarrant County.
Well, we're dealing every day with border issues. This morning we have 4,100 people in our jail, and every day you can count on 8 to 10% of that population being illegal aliens.
Wow.
And they're in there. They're not in there. They're not. And I segment this apart. The illegal alien issue is one thing. Illegal aliens that come into the country and break our laws are totally different. And of course, this morning is, for instance, just a few people that we have in jail on that is we've got people in there for human trafficking. We've got people in there. We've got 8 or 9 murderers in there. We've got 71 major drug dealers. Some of the cartel people are in there. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 for aggravated sexual assault on a child.
My goodness.
So out of the 250 or 300, the majority of them are very serious felony offenses that they have committed inside the borders of not only Texas but Tarrant County. And they're being held accountable, and they're being detained. Some of these people will be in the Texas system for the very rest of their lives. Some of them will be deported.
So one of those issues that you were talking about, we were talking off air a little bit, so we'll get a little out of line, but I think this goes along with it, is that idea of human trafficking. I know that Texas has been, obviously, since it's a border state, we know that at the border there's just a significant human trafficking issue. And so we can highlight the problem, but you can speak to the problem, but you also have demonstrated through your leadership that Tarrant County is leading the country in some of the great efforts that are being done to eradicate and help bring justice to some of these human traffickers. Speak to that a little bit.
Well, thank you. When we entered office in January of 17, we knew that it was there, and we knew that there was not much being done about it because it was difficult to define. So we were able, within just a couple of months, set up a human trafficking unit. We got 4 very aggressive detectives, and with the support of the leadership, we threw them out there in the deep water, if you will, and they went after it. And what we knew we had to do is go after and rescue the people that were in it, hold the people accountable that were causing it, and also the customer side of this, because there's 3 factors. So we went after all that, and I'm proud to report today that we've arrested somewhere near 200 people for some form of engaging in human trafficking. And we had some horrific cases where we rescued 14 and 15 and 16 and 17-year-old girls out of this that had come out of horrible circumstances themselves and that had been trafficking for weeks and months and years. And we were able to get them out along with several adults. And we found that the statistics that pan out was that some of these people that have been in sex trafficking for several years started at 14 was the average age in Texas. And we also know that 89% of the kids under the age of 18 that are in human trafficking, according to some studies, unfortunately come right out of our foster care program, the forgotten children often. But we've rescued close to, in the greater Tarrant County area, somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 people in the last 2 years. And our guys are out there every day digging into this. This is the scourge of the earth, selling human beings, renting human beings, and doing horrific things.
So help us understand, because I think some of the secret sauce of what the Tarrant County system has done is you haven't done it alone either. So I think just a disclaimer, I serve on the board of Traffic 911, which is working to help come alongside and advocate for children that are making their way out of human trafficking. And I can just say thank you so much, Sheriff, for the great work that your system's doing, because we know that you can't do it alone, that government in and of itself can't do it, but you've been so welcoming to organizations. So help us to understand how you've come alongside some of these NGOs and nonprofits.
We have came alongside of a lot of those nonprofits that are in this ministry of these people, and they have been resources for us where we needed people to be able to place these victims someplace. We needed people who could counsel these victims. And the NGOs have been incredibly at our service to do that. So we have brought down traditional walls of law enforcement where we're not going to let anybody in and say, okay, you guys are on the same page as we are. Let's go do this.
Yeah.
And because it takes all of us to be a part of this. And we don't need to necessarily block anybody out, because if they can bring resources and they can bring talent and gifts aboard that will help us do what we're doing. And we've had some people involved in this that are former human traffickers, and they are plugged in now to some of these NGOs, helping other people get out and counsel other people. That has been incredible. And we've taken them on undercover operations, quite frankly, and they've assisted us in rescues.
Because I think that's one of the shocking things when you talk about the undercover operations, because you would think we're here in Texas, we're in the DFW, this kind of stuff doesn't happen anymore. But in reality, like you said, it's a plague that's a part of the Dallas-Fort Worth as well as just the greater Texas area, right?
That is absolutely correct. It is under our nose, and it's very well hidden, sometimes hidden in the wide open.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to describe sometimes, because these people they go deep undercover, the bad people do, but the people that are looking for them also go there. And we've had, for instance, we had a 15-year-old that over a 2-week period that she was literally sold from one trafficker to another 3 different times, and plus she was rented out several times during the day. And she had the wherewithal to maintain who those people were, and we were able to make cases on several of those. So it's phenomenal. But hopefully she's out and doing well. I hadn't checked on her in a long time, but hopefully she's doing well.
That's phenomenal. Well, we have got to go to a break right now, and so you are going to want to stick around. We'll have Sherriff Bill Waybourn that is going to be joining us right after this break. But when we come back, we're going to continue talking a little bit about the human trafficking issue that is just a part of the Dallas-Fort Worth as well as the larger Texas area, and even just in the U.S. in general, some numbers indicate that there's upwards of 40 million individuals that are trafficked here in the world. And then in Texas specifically, there's upwards of 300,000 individuals that are trafficked in Texas. And so this is something that's significant, but also, as he alluded to, so these children are coming from somewhere, and that foster care really is one of those sources. And so what does it look like for individuals that are following after Jesus to heed what it says in James 1:27, that potentially that not only they can adopt these children that are in the orphans, but also to be able to help eliminate some of this human trafficking source. We'll be back, though, right after this.
Welcome to the First Liberty Briefing. I'm Jeremy Dice. On Ash Wednesday, it is common to see individuals bearing the mark of the cross on their foreheads, part of a religious tradition reminding the faithful of their own sinfulness and the atoning work of Christ on the cross. Evidently, not everyone understands that. William McLeod, a fourth grader at Valley View Elementary School in Utah, is Catholic. He showed up to school on Wednesday morning with the traditional mark of the cross on his forehead. His teacher took him aside, handed him a wet cloth, and instructed him to wash his forehead clean. He attempted to explain the reason for the mark, but to no avail. William spent the rest of his school day embarrassed and upset. Later, school administrators responded to complaints by his family, and the teacher apologized. Students are free to exercise their faith, even at school, so long as doing so does not interfere with the educational mission of the school. A harmless, silent mark of ash on one's forehead does nothing to prevent such instruction. Situations like this show how afraid school officials have become of any display of religion in school. As one court wisely put it, in situations like these, quote, the school's proper response is to educate the audience rather than squelch the speaker. In other words, they should teach, not censor. To learn how First Liberty is protecting religious liberty for all Americans, visit firstliberty.org.
Hi, I'm Kelly Shackelford, President and Chief Counsel of First Liberty Institute. You can protect your religious freedom by going to firstliberty.org to download your free Religious Liberty Protection Kit. Our attorneys created kits for churches, ministries, Christian schools, military members, students, and teachers, and the workplace. Get your Religious Liberty Protection Kit at firstliberty.org. That's firstliberty.org.
Now, back to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
And welcome back to Point of View. I'm your host, Nick Pitts, joined at the Millennial Roundtable by Sherriff Bill Waybourn. Sherriff Bill, I guess you're a little bit older than a millennial, but I feel like we're kindred spirits, though.
Well, I like that. I appreciate that very much.
I wish I could grow a mustache like you. Just being completely honest, I haven't shaved in about a week, and so it's going to come there one day.
One of these days.
But nevertheless, Sherriff Bill, as I'm reading the news every day, it just seems as though police officers are just in the spotlight right now. We're very quick to identify the few bad apples and then characterize it onto the entirety of the entire segment of police officers. And so help us to understand it, from your perspective, what does it look like going in and day out, knowing that sometimes you're just not going to be seen as the good guy that's coming to restore peace?
Well, I will tell you that when I get up in the morning and I get to put on a uniform, I'm blessed and privileged to do that, and I'm honored to have this charge. But it would be that most police officers feel like they're stepping into landmines, a landmine field every day, and as they go out there, the police that I know, and I've been blessed to know police officers all over the world, and I think we've got some of the best in North Texas. I really, really do. Is that these young men and women, and some older men and women, they are noble souls that really want to go out and serve. They really feel like they've been called to this. They want to go out and they want to help. And just this last weekend in Fort Worth, Texas, we had that horrific kidnapping, and they searched relentlessly. People were coming out of the woodwork trying to find Salem. And when they did find it, I want to point to people that they breached that door in a dramatic, tactical moment. And just put yourself in their shoes for just a moment, that they go in, they see Salem, they see the bad guy. And just put yourself and know what happened and know how bad he was, but how professional they acted, how restraintful that they were, and that they take bad guy into custody and they rescue the victim.
Phenomenal.
And it was publicized nationally. The news is those guys do that at some level every day. And they go where all the sin is, and they partake of none, and they stand as that thin blue line, as some people describe it, and I'll describe it as a type of nobility that stands between good and evil, and proudly does so because they've been called to it.
I completely agree. There is a calling that is upon police officers and a particular equipment of police officers. You're never called to celebrations. You're always called to breakdowns in society, knowing that you're going to be leaving you're going to be leaving your family every day, knowing that you're going to see the worst of the worst that our community has, but trying to bring the best out of that. And I think that that's a completely different temperament when you understand the whole contextual picture of what police officers and law enforcement officials are doing every single day.
Well, thank you, and that is true. And I mean, it is that calling. It is that time period where somebody, it rings in their heart and says, "Okay, it's my time to step in and go." And these guys go and do it, and sometimes they become cynical. And for your listening audience, these officers do need your prayers. They need your thoughts. I believe that 98% of the people really appreciate police officers. I think that there's some in the media that want to exploit us, and they want to dwell on the bad guy that we may have, because guess what? We're all human beings too, and we have failures. We have people who slip off of the path. But I was saying that, I'd also like to point out that police officers are some of the best in the world for as any profession that holds each other accountable. I mean, where do you go to for doctors? Do they have an internal affairs division? Does the teachers have an internal affairs division, or ministers have internal affairs division? I would tell you no. Police departments created that because we want to stay in those good standards, and we want an accountability arm.
Now I know I'm hoping that one of my buddies isn't listening right now, but I've got one of my dear friends in life is a police officer, and that's not just something that he does at work. It's also something that he does in life as well. He is more than willing to speak truth into my life and hold me accountable, even when I don't want to hear it. But nevertheless, he's not probably listening to this right now, so we won't talk anymore. Well, let's pivot for a little bit, because right before you came on, we were talking about Sesame Street, and I know what you're thinking. That's just an ordinary topic for a talk radio show during the midday, but we were talking about Sesame Street in the introduction of a new character, Carly, which is a foster Muppet, and trying to highlight the pressing need that we have here in the U.S. Upwards of 443,000 foster children in the system here. Now that there's numbers that are pretty significant here, as well as pressing, that might be interesting to our listeners relative to Tarrant County as well. Wouldn't you say so?
Yes, sir. In the greater Tarrant County area is that we do have a huge need for adoptive parents. We've got 400 children ready for adoption, and nobody's taking them. And these are kids that were in foster care, that their parents' rights have been terminated. And, they can reach out to a bunch of different organizations, All Church Homes, Addie's Hope, Hope for Fort Worth. There is tons of organizations out there trying to help these kids find homes.
And it's really important, just because there's significant effects that parents can have when they take these kids out of homes, right?
Absolutely. Is that there's some statistics, easy for me to say, right? Is that show that kids that say in perpetual foster care, and think of that, we're mentoring some where these kids graduate from high school, hopefully, and here they are in society, and they have nobody, and we're mentoring those, is that 70% of that group is going to end up in the system somewhere, either in jail, mental health issues, or this, that, and the other. But also there's some showing effects if people will adopt these children, regardless of age. They can be 12, 13, 14, is that you bring them into your home, and they have this home forever. That reduces down to 10%. And if I may, Nick, go off, is that biblically speaking,
oh my goodness, yeah,
is that, you know, we're told when we're in Christ, he has us in his hand. We have a home forever. He tells us we're adopted. And what an emulation that we could have in the church if we emulate Christ with these children and give them a home forever.
I like to think of adoption as an earthly echo of a heavenly reality.
Amen.
It is quite literally a parent choosing an individual, preparing a place for them, and adopting them. Exactly what our God has done with us out of his abounding love. He has chosen us. He has prepared a place for us, and he is willing to lay down his life for us. That it can be costly, but there are services and individuals within the community that are more than willing to help out, do some great work. And
Amen.
I'm exceedingly grateful for you, Sherriff Bill, and for the work that you're doing. If you'd like to find out more information on Sherriff Bill, you can go to our Point of View website to find out kind of some of the great things that are happening in Tarrant County relative to some of the foster care work, to their efforts on human trafficking. To learn more about some of the news, you can go to the Point of View website at pointofview.net. Sherriff Bill, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciated it.
Nick, thank you for having me. It was an honor to be with you.
It's always good to have a fellow DBU grad as well here.
Go.
Yeah, go Patriots. And
Amen.
So, we've got to take a break right now, but when we come back from the break, we're going to continue this conversation. We'll have Monica Zuniga that is going to be joining us in studio. Monica will be sharing with us a little bit. I'm going to be arguing with her about some of this, the necessity of college here in the U.S., and then some of the burden that's falling upon students right now relative to the average college graduate is graduating with around $29,000 of debt right now. And so what does it look like? Is this a failure of the system that individuals have this much debt, or is this just something that they should expect when they walk into the college doors? We'll talk a little bit about that, as well as highlight the power of generosity with Mr. Smith that came and gave that potentially a $40 million gift to eradicate student debt, the Morehouse College class of 2019. But we have got to take a break. But when we come back from the break, more from Point of View and the Millennial Roundtable right after this.
Why should you become a partner with Point of View Radio? Because for decades, this team has made a significant difference in lives and communities across the nation. Because America is dying for lack of biblical wisdom about life and culture. You should give because your gift will make possible cutting-edge information on issues that matter, information you won't hear anywhere else. Why? Because your gift will change lives, because you'll influence our culture with biblical truth, and because you can make a difference for the future. Our nation needs a truth team very badly. Support Point of View Radio today at pointofview.net. Click on Join the Truth Team and choose your level of support. Pointofview.net. Or call 800-347-5151, 800-347-5151. Or mail that first donation to Point of View, Box 30, Dallas, Texas 75221. Box 30, Dallas 75221. Point of View will continue after this.
I just want to thank you so much for all the wonderful programming you have. You're just absolutely fantastic.
I recently started listening to Point of View, and I really found it interesting because of the different subjects you cover. Thank you for that.
I really appreciate everything that you do in keeping us informed.
Thank you, Kirby, for everything that you have been doing. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, advocating for the Word of God. Thank you so much.
Point of view, I think, is absolutely necessary because it's a Christian perspective, a biblical worldview perspective, and receive very current, up-to-date information about what is really going on, week to week in our culture, which is changing so rapidly, and yet it's morally sliding backwards.
Yeah, I'm just, first of all, I thank you guys. Y'all's program is wonderful, and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it.
Point of View Radio Talk Show.
Hi, this is Kirby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging. Apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, friends and society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View starts right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now,
Nick Pitts.
Y'all, welcome to Point of View. Monica just name dropped me here at the very beginning, and so now I'm all discombobulated right now. I'm so grateful that you decided to join us. I am your host, Nick Pitts, for this Millennial Roundtable. So grateful that you are here today. We've got quite a show for you. That's right. For those of you that are just tuning in, you have missed 1 hour. That's right. We were on during the first hour and had a great segment talking about some of the news of the day, specifically talking about President Trump, a federal court judge ruling against his appeal, saying that President Trump must reveal his financial records from 2011 to today, and that inevitably that will make its way through the appeals process. Also, Monica, I was telling them earlier. Also, I'm joined in studio by Monica Zuniga right now. Monica, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Nick?
So one of the things that I was telling I was reading a survey on this that indicated that it seems as though the courts, the Democrats, the Democratic-controlled Congressional Oversight Committee, has decided that they wanted these records from President Trump. Well, fascinatingly enough, there was a survey that was put out in 2017 that indicated that 80% of Americans feel uncomfortable sharing their financial records. So there's like an overwhelming majority of Americans that would fight this, that are very uncomfortable with revealing some of their pay. Now, granted, the other side of the argument is going to say, well, he's a public official. They've been doing this since the 70s, they've been doing this before, probably in LBJ time, or actually Nixon, because it was in 72. So what they're saying is, well, the other side would say, well, that's just what he signed up for. This is a long precedent in doing this. But then one of the fascinating things I thought was so funny about this is there was a Harvard study that was put out in 2013. And in the Harvard study, they indicated, they asked participants, over 2,000 participants, how much would you be willing to pay to find out your coworker's salary? And that number, the median response was $13.
I was going to say, it's got to be low.
As Congress, the funny thing is, Congress was willing to go to the courts to find out. Most people are just willing to give up a meal at Applebee's to find out everybody's neighborhood grill. But nevertheless, it is what it is. So all that to say, audience, we have been talking about that a little bit. And then we also had Sherriff Bill Waybourn in studio sharing with us a little bit about what's happening in the Tarrant County area. He's doing some great work, and we really honed in on two specific issues of what the Sheriff's Office is doing in Tarrant County, specifically around foster care children, that right now there are 400 kids that have been approved out of the foster care system to be adopted. You can go adopt a child if you're in the Tarrant County area today and make that earthly echo of a heavenly reality of adopting a child. You can do that today. And we're talking about the significance of what it looks like when you go ahead and adopt a child. But then also we were talking about some of this, the pressing need for individuals to continue to come alongside police officers and help out with the human trafficking issue. One of the things that he was keenly aware of as one of the issues that they're facing is individuals that are trafficked right now in the area. Serving on the board of Traffic 911, I was sharing with him how grateful I am for the work that Tarrant County is doing. They're leading the nation. I'm convinced they're leading the nation not only in identifying individuals that are perpetuating this scourge upon the earth, which are preying and selling individuals, or really renting human beings. But not only are they doing that, but they're coming alongside these nonprofit NGOs and coming alongside and help and asking them to help eradicate human trafficking. Right now in Texas, there's around 319,000 individuals that are being trafficked right now, either sexually or through labor camps. And there's just a beautiful opportunity for the church to be that church bell that's singing that let liberty ring for individuals to let the captives be set free. So you missed a couple of things that we had in this
Sounds
first
like
hour.
it was amazing.
But the second hour, though, as we make our way into this hour, we're going to have quite a show. For our listeners, if you've been tuning in for the first hour, I've been hyping the fact that I'm just going to argue with Monica the entire
let's
time.
Go.
We're just going to. I'm
do
probably
it.
going to be proven wrong, but you know what? Montaigne was right. There's no such thing as that a conversation in which everyone agrees is completely boring. So I do not want boring conversation. So we're going to talk a little bit about the great generous act that Robert Smith did on Sunday. And then we'll also talk about how millennials are playing catch up right now. And I'm not talking about the condiment that falls upon hamburgers. I'm talking about just the data points that are indicating that millennials are lagging behind certain characteristics of life. And so just so you know, if you'd like to find out more information on the articles that we're talking about, you can go over to the Point of View website, pointofview.net, or you can go onto the Facebook page, facebook.com/pointofviewradio, and find out more information on some of those articles. And so let's start it off, shall we? Okay, so let's go. Let's fast forward or maybe rewind back to Sunday. Morehouse College, historical black college in Atlanta, probably one of the top institutions in the country, a historic, traditional, phenomenal school that has alma maters of the likes of this guy named Martin Luther King Jr. I don't know if you've heard of him. Yeah. I hear he was kind of a big deal. Just kidding. That's just a joke. Well, during the Morehouse College commencement, there was an individual named Robert Smith. He leads a private equity firm known as Vista. And what he does is he raises the bar exponentially for commencement speeches from here to Kingdom Come.
Sure.
And he decides that he is not only did he give a gift to the university of $1.5 million.
Yes.
Not only a huge gift in the beginning, but then he goes back and then he says, well, during the commencement, he drops that he says, this is my class, and he's paying off all their student debt.
Yeah.
There's almost 400 individuals that were graduating at that time.
Yeah.
Average graduate has around $29,000 worth of debt, and that gift, potentially pledging to pay off all that, is around $40 million more on top of that $1.5 million. Initial thoughts, go.
That's a lot of money. That's my initial thought.
Yeah.
But also, it's so empowering.
Oh, my goodness.
It's crazy. I feel like my initial thought when I saw it was we are living in such a unique time where the Black American just has opportunities unlike any other. Social media has really opened the floodgates for that with communication about things, the rise of things. I recently read an article about Black-owned businesses really growing exponentially this year and predicted to grow more. And so this happening is just evidence of that. It's like the catch-up. I feel like we're playing catch-up in society of, we spent a lot of years with Black people in slavery, as we all know. And then, we've spent so much time, we've advanced, grown so much as a culture, as a nation in that. And really the rise of equal opportunity is even higher. And so I felt the sense of almost my family, I'm a result of my family migrating to the U.S. from Spain, from Mexico. And it's like, man, growing up, it was we want the best for our kids. We want to give an opportunity they've never had. So my initial thoughts were, wow, this is amazing for every person that graduated. Second thought was, wow, that's a lot of money. I totally looked into Vista. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
How is this guy making so much money? Amazing.
Oh, he's like unreal. He started off at Goldman Sachs and was just on the M&A side of technology. And during the time when he started, it just blew up. But all that to say, we've got to go to a break right now. So when we come back from the break, one of the things that I'm going to be really interested in talking about is this something to celebrate, but do we also need to lament the fact that so many people have so much debt? We'll be back right after this.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
American credit card debt has now topped $1 trillion, and most of the people in debt don't pay off their credit cards and thus pay very high interest rates. But never fear. Socialists, Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez have introduced legislation to provide some relief. Their bill would limit what credit card companies could charge in interest rates. Although the Bible and even various theologians have warned against usury, I don't think that is the origin of their concern for the Loan Shark Prevention Act. Instead, they merely think that government should be a solution to any social problems in society. Most Christians would instead suggest that providing biblical counseling on money would be a better solution. High interest rates are being charged by credit card companies, but also by payday lenders. In previous commentaries, I've talked about how some of these groups prey upon poor Americans who need to borrow money before their next paycheck. These interest rates being charged seem exorbitant until you realize that some of the people borrowing money have a poor track record in repaying the loan. By the way, these two socialists aren't through. They also want the U.S. Postal Service to provide basic banking services so that poor people don't have to pay banks a monthly service fee. This would be the same U.S. Postal Service that loses about $5 billion each year and lost a record $15 billion in 2012. Let's just say that the post office might not be the best model for sound financial management, and postal workers don't need to be given the responsibility of becoming bank tellers. These bills and proposals once again illustrate the mindset of some members of Congress who are convinced that the best solution to any social, political, or economic issue is more government. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For a free copy of Kirby's booklet, A Biblical View on Anti-Semitism, go to viewpoints.info/antisemitism. Viewpoints.info/antisemitism.
You're listening to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
And welcome back to Point of View. I'm your host, Nick Pitts, joined at the Millennial Roundtable with Monica Zuniga. We have been talking a little bit about the extravagant gift that Robert Smith offered to the Morehouse College graduating class of 2019. The significant gift to where he said on that Sunday afternoon that he was going to pay off all of their student debt. It's $29,000 is the average student loan debt. Here's some of the fascinating statistics that I was able to conjure up during my free time. That
Your unlimited free time.
69% of college students will take out loans to go to school, which is pretty significant portion. It's gone up over the years. They'll graduate, obviously, like we said, with $29,000 in debt. But then also what I thought was so interesting is that the average payment after you go through that 6-month deferral, and so college students, you're able to defer your payments on your debts for 6 months if you don't go straight into grad school. And so after that 6 months, the average payment is around $370. And so just imagine budgeting to have that $370 probably for 10, 15 years. And now you don't have to pay it. That $370 is free to be able to pay that. And then on top of that, what I found was one of the things that's most interesting is that 11.5% of debt payments, payments on college loans right now are either in delinquency 1 or in default 2. And so that's a pretty sizable chunk of individuals. But help me to understand, is this something that, because we're making our way into the 2020 campaign season, there's a lot of talk that's being thrown out there relative to just completely making college free.
Yes, I was thinking about that.
What is that?
Yeah.
Help me think aloud for me for a second on this.
I think it's such a beautiful thing, that he gave that money, but it is something that plagues everyone we know our age for the most part. I mean, I was fortunate enough. I went to college on a scholarship to run cross country and track. And so for me, my debt has not been nearly something that I've had to stress about at the level that other friends of mine are. But that $300 a month, absolutely. Paying off for years, absolutely. I'm old enough now where I've gone to a few parties and celebrated that school debt has been paid off,
those are fun.
But it is a huge thing. And I was literally thinking the same thing, that it might be something that's completely free in the next campaign.
So here's the thing, because the New York Times came out with their op-ed on this, and so they initially, I guess the Sunday afternoon before even a Monday, because I think this was this came out, this was printed, I'm looking right now, it was printed in the May 20th. So literally it was on Monday. So their op-ed didn't even give it a day. The New York Times didn't even give it a day to celebrate just the generous act that this man did.
Yes.
But what we see is one of the fascinating things, and I'm going to quote from it. It says, here we go. We've got the substitute of philanthropy for public policy is the most glaring in the realm of healthcare. Oh man, where did it go? This is so embarrassing. Okay, there it is. That we're at the last turn of the century, there's no federal income tax. A new generation of plurocrats has amassed great fortunes, quote, because the federal government has minimized the burden of taxation. Americans once again are reduced to applauding acts of philanthropy necessitated by failures of policy. Is this a failure of policy? Should college be free? Because I'm of the mind when I have something that's free, I don't take good care of it. And I think that there's an argument that can be made that I need to at least pay a little something for it.
I do. I feel like the millennial generation would not value their education or take it as serious if they didn't have to pay for it. Granted, we could talk about privilege all day long if it's completely free and what that would look like. But I wrestle with it because I think about my nieces and nephews. I think about people I know in high school or even those in college who don't have the funds to maybe go to the institution they want to go to. So they would love to have a free education to get that. And I know people that wouldn't take it for granted, but would totally run at the opportunity, leap at it, learn and grow. So I don't know. I'm pretty torn. I think what makes it most difficult is that we went, all of us that have already gone, have accrued the debt.
It's
if
easy.
It's free,
remind me.
I want everyone else to have the same rite of passage.
It's like hazing.
Did.
I mean, we didn't haze in our fraternity. You're not watching, if you're not watching on, but nevertheless, it's like you get through, you hate hazing, but then once you're through, you're like, man, I love hazing because I get to be a part of it. Just kidding, we didn't haze in college, but I do think that there's something to be said because at the end of the day, I know what listeners are thinking to themselves right now. There's no such thing as a free lunch. People are still paying for it right now. And is there an argument to be made that the greater part of society needs to bear a burden for college students to be able to go to the colleges that they select?
I mean, we'll just be taxed for it to pay for it, and I don't think Americans want to do that.
I
don't want to
do that.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to pay for someone else's education that, I'm still paying for my own. I can hear so many people saying that,
because here's the thing, we're already paying for individuals to be educated, and I'm fine with that. I think here in Texas, it's around $10,000 per student that we're paying, and I think that's a good thing that we're doing. I think we need to be paying to help raise up a generation. I would much rather, what is it? Freedom is one generation away from being lost, according to Reagan. I think there's a value in educating, but I'm just interested because here's a statistic that continues to run through my mind right now, and this might deviate from the conversation about college. But the study was the research found that in 1890, 7.8% of children ages 16 years old were in school. Today, that number is around 96%.
Wow.
We've continued to delay and push back this educational process, and I do wonder. Is it necessary, one, which would be the question, and then I guess the underlying question to get us back to the college, does tax cuts or raising taxes need to pay for college? I guess that's another question that I would have for you.
I think education is absolutely necessary and fundamental. Education is your way to growth. It is the key that unlocks so many opportunities. It's the key. Growing up as a minority, I grew up in a home where I know my cousins, neighbors, other friends, it was like so celebrated to graduate high school as if it was the biggest deal ever. Where in our home, it was like, that's the minimum requirement.
Yeah.
You've got to go to college and and hopefully get a master's. It was a different conversation, but that's because education was a priority, and education then, now has led to so much for our family. Even visiting other countries, this conversation is clear that education is a huge priority and a window into things. And so when it comes to college, I do believe that education is a huge need, especially for people that are trying to better themselves. If we're trying to educate every child and give everyone equal opportunity, we've got to give them all education. I do struggle a bit with, and this is just a personal thing. I'm feeling how I'm sure my parents have felt, how my grandparents have felt, how other people have felt of spending my hard-earned money that I'm trying to save to put towards other things and doing that to give other people an opportunity for a college education. Whereas there's value in working and pursuing your education. I ran full time and a full-time student, and I worked when I was in college to cover all my expenses. And that grew a lot of character in me to be the person I am.
Yeah.
If it was free, I wouldn't have learned the discipline of that. Waking up early, doing indoor, outdoor, cross country, like that was all year round, and wouldn't have learned the discipline of working hard, managing my schedule to find time to go to work, to go to class, to study, learning to say no to things and extracurriculars. I feel as though if education was completely free, there would be a lot that's lost in character development in a generation that's already behind in so much of that.
Yeah. Well, I'll be interested to hear. Let's open up the phone lines for a little bit. Do you think college education should be free? We'll make it that easy, that simple of a question. Calm down, Andrew. I love it. Andrew's one of our producers. Do you think college education should be free? You can call in 800-351-1212. Again, that number is 800-351-1212. Or go onto the Facebook page, facebook.com/pointofviewradio. I'm going to go ahead and lay my cards out on the table. I don't think this is necessarily a controversial opinion. I don't think college should be free. Or maybe probably my better proposition that I need to put forward is I don't think that the larger tax base needs to bear the burden of paying for college for individuals that are attending college. I think that needs to continue to a large degree to fall upon these individuals. I'm keenly aware that many of them are going into significant amounts of debt, but then I'd want to hone in on, do they necessarily have to go to the schools that they're going to?
Yes.
One, two, they what kind of degree are they getting to? Are they going? They need to make sure that there's a telos towards a particular end. And so I had nothing against art history. I know I need to learn more about art history, but is there a job on the other end? Because for 99% of people, college is just a means to an end. The college is not the end unless you're going to be a professor or administrator. And then let's just have a blunt conversation about just what college is right now. Is college just is it an amusement park for 18 to 22-year-olds right now? Or do we need to get rid of some of the slip and slides? We'll be back right after this.
So you sit down and do your budget, and you look at all your monthly costs and your bills and your income, and it seems like there's never quite enough. You know what would really help? Finding $500 a month to help balance things out. That is the typical savings, $500 a month for a family when you switch to MediShare for your health care. And when it comes to healthcare sharing ministries, MediShare is really the gold standard. It's been around for 25 years and has more than 400,000 members. It's been around so long and grown so much because it works. And whether you're single or married or have kids, this could make sitting down to do a monthly budget a lot more fun. $500 a month can more than cover a car payment or pay back loans, whatever. So join MediShare and go out to dinner to celebrate. Here's the number to call. They are incredibly kind and helpful to talk to. 855-90-BIBLE. That's 855-90-BIBLE. 855-90-BIBLE.
Tired of fake news? Support truth. Join Point of View's Truth Team and bring healing to America. Go to pointofview.net/team. Pointofview.net/team. Or 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this.
You're listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is
Nick Pitts.
And welcome back to Point of View. I'm your host, Nick Pitts, joined by Monica Zuniga. We have been talking about college, and specifically, should college be free? The great act of generosity that was done by Robert Smith on Sunday to the Morehouse College graduates of the class of 2019 went ahead and paid off all their student loan debt, $29,000 on average per person. And that left many wondering, do we have a policy failure that it requires such a great act of generosity to be able to eradicate that kind of burden of anywhere from probably around $300 to $400 per month for the next 10 years for these college graduates that are just getting out of the school? So it raises the question again, especially in 2020, campaign is looming. We're finding ourselves amidst it. Should college be free? Probably the better way to put that, need to be more precise. Should Americans not going to college pay for students that are going to college? Because we know there's no such thing as a free lunch, and I learned that in college.
Yes.
Roscoe Shane. And so we have been kind of debating the finer points of this, and I think both of us are in agreement, but if we continue to have no one that disagrees with us, I'm probably going to disagree just for the sake of argument. And because I think both of us worked really hard. I didn't work in college. I had scholarships, so I guess to a certain degree I was paid a little bit to go to college, but I didn't do that. But when I was in high school, I remember having to work. Oh my goodness, Clarksville, Montgomery County. For my Tennessee people that are listening right now, if you'll look at Barksdale Elementary School and Rossview High School, I was the guy that was weed eating those places the sun. And so it would be around this time of year when high school would get out, and then we would go. And I'm starting to be triggered by those nightmares. But nevertheless, we've opened the phone lines. Do you think college should be free? And so you can call in 800-351-1212. Again, that number is 800-351-1212, or make your way over to the Facebook page, facebook.com/pointofviewradio. What you share online, we'll try to get to over air as well. Let's go ahead. Oh, wow. We've got quite a few comments that are happening right now. Joyce agrees with us. No, it should not be free. College should not be so expensive. Jacqueline is what Jacqueline says. We were talking about that off air, Jacqueline. We actually were saying how there's some cost cutting measures that can happen within colleges. We talked about the bloating administrative budget, just the number of individuals that are in administration that obviously are causing tuitions to rise, as well as this, what I call the theme parkification, maybe the amusement parkification. That's not really a word, but I feel good about it. I'm a college educated individual. I can just make up words. That's happening on college campuses right now, where it's really not just a place where you can go get an education. There's also water slides, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
And so you brought up a really good point, Jacqueline. That's one of the ways that it might not be so expensive. And then Pamela, dual credits during high school. Yeah, it's a great idea, Pamela. Did you do dual credits?
I did.
Okay, so just for our listeners, dual credits in high school is when you're in high school, you're also, instead of, say, an English class, a high school English class, your junior or senior year, the way that it was set up in Clarksville, you would just take a college English class during that time, and then you would earn 3 hours that made its way towards the either 128 hours. So you took it from a local community college, which was a little cheaper, and so you got to bring in college credit. You did that?
I did. I was almost a year ahead.
You were smart.
Yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, education was huge in our home.
Not just smart common sense wise, but you're also smart. I wasn't smart enough to actually get into those programs.
Oh, my dad made us.
Oh, really?
Trust me, it was big for him.
I thought it was a big deal when I got into advanced English, but then I realized they ruined my summer by making me do summer reading. And so Lord of the Flies almost became a reality. I almost went off on my own little island and killed some people. Nevertheless, just kidding. Okay, so let's go ahead and take some phone calls. 800-351-1212. Should college be free? Let's make our way over to Nevada right now. We've got Rita on the phone. Rita, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey, Rita. What's your point of view?
Well, I used to work at a community college in North Platte, Nebraska. It was called Mid Plains Community College, And for every class that you got an A, you did not have to pay for that class.
Wow.
I thought that was a fabulous idea.
What?
Yes.
So every
it was-
class you got an A in, it was free.
Yes, it was free.
Was this like a carnival kind of deal where it was like, you know how like some carnival games that you play, it's like, yeah, you can shoot it, make it in the hoop, and then you get a big plastic. Was it impossible to get an A at this college?
No. I worked as a registrar, so quite a few students got A's in their class. My sister got straight A's, so she didn't have to pay for
Unreal.
school to become a librarian.
Wow.
And so they weren't just basket weaving classes. These were serious
That's phenomenal.
classes. You get an A, you don't have to pay for it.
Where was this? How was this funded? Was
Yes,
this funded
that was
through
my question.
donors? Was this funded through the state?
Well, it's a type of scholarship program, you know,
Okay.
through the school.
Man,
Wow. I love that. That's genius.
I'm Rita. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, you've stirred levels of envy that are unhealthy and ungodly in my heart. In Cookeville, Tennessee, when I got all A's, I got a free Dairy Queen.
Oh my gosh.
And so it wasn't anything like free college. So, but nevertheless, well, Rita, thank you so much for your
Yes,
phone call.
thank you.
You bet. Thanks.
Let's go ahead and let's make our way over to David right now in Georgia. David, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, David. Whereabouts in Georgia are you?
I'm in Savannah.
Ah, okay.
Oh, nice.
Okay, very nice. Very nice. So, David, what's your point of view?
I just can't see giving free away. I mentioned to you earlier, I remember way back when, 60-plus years ago, my dad once told me anything that's free, somebody has to work for nothing to give it to you. I feel ownership when you pay something in, whether it's a scholarship that you're going to have to, that you're going to play ball or you're going to run like the young lady there with you. There's a payment. But if something is just given away, there's just not much value to it. You don't hold it real tight. You just kind of loose with it. And it just runs along with the welfare system. You know, when you give things away, people have no respect for it. And we're not in a financial situation, not now, to take that kind of burden on as a nation. There's just no way.
Yeah, I can think of 22 trillion reasons why we're not in a financial situation to be able to take
you're
that
right.
on.
I mean, it's just insane.
Yeah.
I can't even believe that somebody would come up with the idea of trying to. I don't know who said it first, but I just can't believe that.
Yeah, it didn't come from my mouth. I can tell you this much, David.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
You know, but a lot. But you've heard it. You know, it's been going on.
Oh, yeah.
Things going around in Washington, and you know, you just. I don't know. It kind of sends me into orbit, is what it does.
Yeah.
Because I know what I had to pay for mine. I know what I had to pay for my children's. And I know what they paid. They went into debt, too.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's just, you got to draw a line.
Yep.
I mean, you have to. If we don't, we won't have nothing to help anyone with.
I am keenly aware. David, it's funny that you talk about this. Like, so I saved up when I was in high school. So when I was going off to college, I knew that there was going to be scholarships were going to help me, were going to get me through college, but I also knew that I wanted spending money as well. And so I was telling one of our producers, one of the key things I did was my parents always required me to get a job in the summer. And so I worked, I cut grass for 40 hours a week. And by cut grass, I mean they gave me a weed eater. They gave me a little Makita, and they'd say, "Hey, there's a hill that we can't get. There's a hill that the tractor won't go on. So you need to go to town on there." And so I made some friends with some snakes and just beat back some weeds back and forth. But I will tell you that did something inside of me that makes me so appreciative when I go out now. And there was a lesson that I learned in that field that no teacher could teach me, but I am exceedingly grateful for. So
you're right. You're 100% right.
Well, David, thank you so.
We're right.
Well, we won't tell them that because I don't want them to get too big. Well, thank you so much for your phone call. Oh, you as well. Well, we are going to have to take a break right now, but when we come back from the break, we're going to continue taking some of your phone calls right now. And y'all, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, if you continue to agree with me that we shouldn't pay for college or that we should pay for college, then I'm going to have to start arguing and disagreeing just for the sake of a lively conversation. But if you'd like to call in, you can do so. The question that we're putting before individuals is, should college be free? You can call in at 800-351-1212. Again, that number is 800-351-1212, or go over onto the Facebook page, facebook.com/pointofviewradio. You make your way over there, and for those of you in Facebook land, you'll be able to see the live video feed of what's happening right now. Don't be alarmed. It's just my face. The more that you call in, the more my face moves off that screen. You leave a comment underneath there, and what you say online we'll try to get to over air as well. So we say thank you to Pamela, Jacqueline, Joyce. We have heard you, and we've given voice to you, but we will be back right after this.
Welcome to the First Liberty Briefing. I'm Jeremy Dice. On Ash Wednesday, it is common to see individuals bearing the mark of the cross on their foreheads, part of a religious tradition reminding the faithful of their own sinfulness and the atoning work of Christ on the cross. Evidently, not everyone understands that. William McLeod, a fourth grader at Valley View Elementary School in Utah, is Catholic. He showed up to school on Wednesday morning with the traditional mark of the cross on his forehead. His teacher took him aside, handed him a wet cloth, and instructed him to wash his forehead clean. He attempted to explain the reason for the mark, but to no avail. Williams spent the rest of his school day embarrassed and upset. Later, school administrators responded to complaints by his family, and the teacher apologized. Students are free to exercise their faith, even at school, so long as doing so does not interfere with the educational mission of the school. A harmless, silent mark of ash on one's forehead does nothing to prevent such instruction. Situations like this show how afraid school officials have become of any display of religion in school. As one court wisely put it, in situations like these, quote, the school's proper response is to educate the audience rather than squelch the speaker. In other words, they should teach, not censor. To learn how First Liberty is protecting religious liberty for all Americans, visit firstliberty.org.
Hi, I'm Kelly Shackelford, President and Chief Counsel of First Liberty Institute. You can protect your religious freedom by going to firstliberty.org to download your free Religious Liberty Protection Kit. Our attorneys created kits for churches, ministries, Christian schools, military members, students, and teachers, and the workplace. Get your Religious Liberty Protection Kit at firstliberty.org. That's firstliberty.org.
Now, back to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
Welcome back to Point of View. Monica and I were just talking over the break. I'm trying to, one, talk a little bit slower, and two, I am trying to think about the argument that I'm going to make if everyone keeps on agreeing that college shouldn't be free. So I'm thinking through what's going to be my opposing argument of why college should be free. But I think a couple of people want to talk about and give their opinion as to why college should be free or not free. And you have answered the call to make a question, to answer the question, rather. And so we are going to be taking some of your phone calls right now, posing the question to you all, should college be free? And so This is all stemming from Robert Smith and his extraordinarily generous act on Sunday to the Morehouse College, giving a commencement address, the best commencement address in the history of commencement addresses, deciding that he was going to, his foundation and his family were going to pay off the student debt of the 396, I believe, college graduates there. I was just imagining, can you imagine the person that decides, I'm so bummed, I'm going to graduate like a semester later, and then to find out, can you imagine if you're that person? Or
I would be devastated. Are you
or
kidding
the person
me?
that's like, I'm working really hard, and I'm going to
Yeah.
graduate early, and then lo and behold,
Yes.
can you imagine? I just
Oh
thought, man, that
my
would be
gosh.
awful for them. Okay, nevertheless,
Horrible.
if you'd like
Yeah.
to call in, answer the question, should college be free? You can do so at 800-351-1212. Or, because it looks like every single line is taken up right now, which is kind of extraordinary. Thank you for calling in. You can go on Facebook, facebook.com/pointofviewradio, live video box, right underneath it, your comments as to should college be free or not, why or why not. What you share online, we'll try to get to over air as well. And so let's go ahead and jump on some phone calls right now. Let's see. You know what? I'm feeling like we need to go to Ohio right now. Or do we have Nathan there?
Yes, you do.
Nathan, how are you, man? Are you
Good. How are you?
You know, we've got to ask the question right now at the very beginning, okay? It's baseball season. We're about to go into the throes of summer. You're in Ohio, a state that is divided right now. What are you an Indians guy?
I'm not. Actually, I don't watch professional baseball. I think the money that's involved takes the fun out of the sport.
Oh, what a bummer. What a bummer. Okay, are you a sports guy at all?
Oh, I love sports.
Okay,
college sports more so because that way, money's not involved and it's for the love of the game. And
Okay, so you're an Ohio State guy, huh?
I'm an Ohio State guy. Yes.
I'm so sorry. Okay, we got to get off now. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding, Nathan. Okay, so help us understand. The answer to the question: do you think college should be free? Why or why not?
Well, first, let me ask you. So you're saying the conversation you're having with me is not lively because I'm agreeing with you?
No way.
You
No.
did say you need some lively conversations. You're going to disagree.
Let's just have a conversation. Nathan, what are your thoughts on college education right now? You know, there's a stream of thought out there right now that we should go ahead and the taxpayers should foot the bill for college students to make their way through college. Do you think this is a good idea? You think it's a bad idea? What would you say?
I don't really say good idea or bad idea, but there's so many programs out there already.
Mm-hmm.
Like you talked about the dual credits in high school. That's not being utilized by all these kids. There's scholarships. There's internships. There's so many avenues to help you pay for college that people just aren't using.
Yeah.
Either they're not aware of, they don't want to do the extra work, they don't want to do the research to find it. There's so many things to draw from to help you pay for colleges that's just not being used. So why make it easier when you're not using the things that are already there to make you help you pay for college?
That's a great point, Nathan.
And then if we do make college free, look what it did to healthcare.
Oh, wow.
Great
Healthcare
point.
was meant to be free, and what did it do? It raised the price.
Yeah, it was bad.
It caused a lot of medical providers to get out of the business because now you're making it more difficult for them to give attention to people that actually need it.
Yeah,
and like the other gentleman said, people start to underappreciate. I mean, I know I'm guilty of it. In high school, my grades were not the best because it was high school. And once I went to college and said, okay, I'm paying for this now, I should probably buckle down a little bit more and study a little bit more than I should have. And I think it makes it more worth the while when you're saying, okay, I'm paying for this. And if I fail, that's just more money out of my pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nathan, you bring up a really great point, and there's a stream of thought that's kind of moving alongside that. When you brought up the Medicare thing, when government got involved into it, you just saw the bloating medical costs that happened here in the U.S., and there's a stream of thought that's happening right now where they're arguing that because government, again, kind of got somewhat involved in college higher education, specifically through the issuing of particular loans and backed funds and grants, that again was another rationale as to seeing the rise in kind of some of these costs relative to college. And so you weren't saying you were insinuating it, but I would completely agree with you on that respect. And when we just when we don't allow the free market enterprise system to be able to run its course, what we continue to see is this rise. And I think you're really pointing out a really good point as to there's other opportunities that just aren't being utilized right now. I'm thinking about certain apprenticeships, specifically here in the Texas as well as I'm familiar in Tennessee. There's certain apprenticeships programs that are kind of quasi internships that allow individuals to be able to go and do work for these companies and these organizations. And then in turn, they'll come and pay for their schooling. I just think those programs aren't being given enough forethought right now.
Right. And anytime government gets involved in things, they're already involved in education and the core math and whatever they're going to now. 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4 anymore because the government got involved. So the more we can keep them out of our educational systems, I think the more educated our kids will be in the future, and the more prepared we're going to make them for all these standardized tests. Let's let our teachers teach and get the government out of there.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Nathan, for your phone call, and best of luck to Ohio State unless they play somebody from the SEC.
Oh, well, I thought this was a Christian radio station. You're going to dog me like
in
that.
love.
Okay.
Sorry, I forgot to put in love, the last prepositional phrase. Have a great day,
Thank you very
Nathan.
much. God bless.
Okay, let's jump on to one more phone call. We've got Brian right now. Brian, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Brian, what's your point of view?
Well, we must not ever allow public taxpayers to pay for colleges, etc. This will very, very rapidly devolve into a massive government-funded party scene where everybody will be expected to attend college because it's just that daggum fun. When it comes down to human nature will always be base, and it cannot be anything but base except for in Christ. Therefore, when we get into college, and it's expected, of course, because after all, it's free. We will have all of these people who are getting bachelor's and doctorates in feminist gay studies, basket weaving, ceramics, whatever. And it will get. I really don't want to pay for everybody else's foul choices. I have enough of my own foul choices to pay for.
Robert, you don't want to pay for me to go get a basket weaving class? Learn how to underwater basket weave?
Maybe I'd pay for a 10-minute film.
Okay.
That's about it.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for your phone call. We really do appreciate it. We've got to jump on to a break right now, but when we come back from the break, it's going to be we're going to continue talking about this idea of free higher education, because I think we can all agree on the fact that there's great value in education, hence the reason why there's so much money that's being poured into it. And then I think a second part is we all understand the need for higher education. So how do we help students? How do we help these individuals that want to go to school, but the idea of the daunting debt that looms before them by making this decision, how can we make that less daunting? Or is it just a cost you have to pay? And so we've got to take a break, but when we come back, more from Point of View right after this.
So you sit down and do your budget, and you look at all your monthly costs and your bills and your income, and it seems like there's never quite enough. You know what would really help? Finding $500 a month to help balance things out. That is the typical savings, $500 a month for a family when you switch to MediShare for your health care. And when it comes to healthcare sharing ministries, MediShare is really the gold standard. It's been around for 25 years and has more than 400,000 members. It's been around so long and grown so much because it works. And whether you're single or married or have kids, this could make sitting down to do a monthly budget a lot more fun. $500 a month can more than cover a car payment or pay back loans, whatever. So join MediShare and go out to dinner to celebrate. Here's the number to call. They are incredibly kind and helpful to talk to. 855-90-BIBLE. That's 855-90-BIBLE. 855-90-BIBLE.
Tired of fake news? Support truth. Join Point of View's Truth Team and bring healing to America. Go to pointofview.net/team. Pointofview.net/team. Or 800-347-5151. Point of View will continue after this.
just want to thank you so much for all the wonderful programming you have. You're just absolutely fantastic.
I recently started listening to Point of View, and I really found it interesting because of the different subjects you cover. Thank you for that.
I really appreciate everything that you do in keeping us informed.
Thank you, Kirby, for everything that you have been doing. I appreciate all the work that you're doing, advocating for the Word of God. Thank you so much.
Point of view, I think, is absolutely necessary because it's a Christian perspective, a biblical worldview perspective, and receive very current, up-to-date information about what is really going on, week to week in our culture, which is changing so rapidly, and yet it's morally sliding backwards.
Yeah, I'm just, first of all, I thank you guys. Y'all's program is wonderful, and enjoy it every day. I learn so much every time I listen to it.
Point of View Radio Talk Show.
Hi, this is Kirby Anderson. You know, each day we take on the tough issues and provide a biblical perspective to them. The topics we cover are wide-ranging: apologetics, theology, prophecy, creation and evolution, intelligent design, marriage, family, child-rearing, the millennial generation, friends and society, politics, economics, business, religious liberty, the Constitution, public policy, foreign policy, military policy, tensions in the Middle East, abortion, homosexuality, pornography, sexual ethics, media, technology, history, and America's godly heritage. We talk about anything that affects your faith, your family, or your freedom. So don't go anywhere, because Point of View continues right now.
Across America, live. This is Point of View. And now,
Nick Pitts.
And welcome back to Point of View. I'm your host, Nick Pitts, on this Millennial Roundtable on Tuesday, May 21st, 2019. Joined by Monica Zuniga. How are you, Monica?
I'm great. You did it.
I did it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm from Tennessee, so it takes me a little bit longer to learn how to pronounce last names. And it was kind of easy. I was like riding training wheels with my last name, Pitts.
Yeah.
It's kind of inappropriate, but also kind of easy. But we're so grateful that you're here. We've been talking about college, y'all. So during the first hour, we talked a little bit we talked with Sherriff. My goodness, why am I forgetting his name? Sherriff Bill Waybourn of Tarrant County, talking a little bit about human trafficking that's happening in Tarrant County, but also some of the great efforts that Tarrant County Sheriff's Department and other federal officials have done to be able to eliminate and to make great strides to eliminate some of the scourge, as he put it. That word has just stuck with me. I thought it was such a great word relative to human trafficking. And then we also talked about the foster care system in Tarrant County and some of the efforts that they're doing in order to try to make sure some of these kids get adopted, and how this is a beautiful opportunity for the church to be the church, because adoption is this earthly echo of a heavenly reality. And then over the past hour, we have been talking about college, and specifically a New York Times op-ed that really stirred this conversation that we were having. It was over Morehouse College. The commencement speaker for Morehouse College, the class of 2019, individual named Robert Smith, gave a very generous gift and decided that he was going to pay off all the student debt of the 398 graduates there.
Crazy.
And so they had no more debt, and it was a gift estimated around $40 million. And so that the New York Times took that and saw that generous act of that altruistic act and decided to pivot it, and revealed that in the generosity, it revealed a policy failure, which raised the question that many are asking during this 2020 campaign season during 2019 is, should college be free? Should individuals have to pay for college? And in a shocking twist, you all have an opinion. And we have been trying to give opportunity for you all to be able to call in and to be able to offer up your comments. And so we have done that in one of two ways. The first being that you can call in at 800-351-1212. Again, that number is 800-351-1212. Do you think college should be free? I don't know if there is a busy signal. I don't know if they get a busy signal when there's no openings in the lines. Well, you do. And so right now it appears as though you all have blown up our phones. I repeat, you've blown up our phones. And so you are going to get a busy signal. But here's the good news. There's this little website. It's called Facebook. Facebook.com/pointofviewradio. You can go over there and you can leave a question or comment underneath that live video box right there. And so put your question, put your comment in relative to the question I asked you. Should college be free? Why or why not? And then what you share online, we'll try to get to over air as well. And so, Monica, I'm going to take a couple of these on
Let's do it.
Facebook. We've got John who says, the problem with paying college is, where does it stop? Undergraduate first, then master's, then doctorates. than other
That's a good
goods
point.
and services. That is a really good point, because where do you stop?
Where?
At the end of the day, because there's a small percentage, maybe 1 to 5%, that college is the end, that they're going to go into higher education. But for the vast majority of individuals, college is just a means.
Yep.
And so if you can justify an undergrad degree, then I would imagine there's certain professions where you can justify a grad degree and then a doctorate as well. So, John, you bring up a really great point. Thanks for the comment. And then we've also got Shelley over here, and Shelley says, I do not feel that college should be free. Being someone who took the non-traditional route, it took me nearly 18 years to complete my bachelor's degree. Way to go,
wow, congrats,
Shelley.
girl.
What grit and diligence. My goodness. And paid for most of it out of pocket. All the while my husband had obtained his bachelor's and walked all the way up, obtaining to his doctorate during that time. That's Shelley, you emulate the grit that America is known for.
Yes.
We are a group of explorers, and we traversed the Atlantic to get here. Then we crossed over the plains, and then we continued our way over to the Pacific, and then we decided that we were going to go north, and then we went to the heavens. And so you yourself have joined that American spirit and have been an explorer that's demonstrated great diligence, and so you are to be commended. And thank you for that question, or in that comment that you shared with us on Facebook. And you can also do so as well. Facebook.com/pointofviewradio. The question that looms before everyone is this: should college be free? And so let's continue taking phone calls. Let's stick here in Texas. We've got Randy here in Texas. Randy, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hey, Randy, where in Texas are you?
I'm in Jacksonville, Texas.
Oh, okay. Good deal.
Just below Tyler.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so Randy, what's your point of view, my man?
Well, I'm looking at the scriptures here, and I think altruism is the principle that's taught by Jesus. And I'll answer your question, yes or no, on that free college thing here. I'm just briefly go through this teaching here and try to make it as short as possible. I mean, you have other people to talk to, but Jesus said in Matthew 20, the landowner went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard, and when he had agreed with the laborers for a denarius a day, he sent them into the vineyard. Then he also saw other people he hired on the third hour, and he said, I'll pay you whatever's right. And then the 6th hour and the 9th hour and the 11th hour, he'll pay you what's right. Whatever's right, you'll receive. Go down to verse 10 here. But when the first came, this is Matthew 20:10, when the first ones came, after the day was over, they supposed that they would receive more than all these others. And they likewise received each a denarius. They complained about this. And, of course, they said, hey, we worked all day long. These guys just worked an hour. We get the same pay.
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus said in Matthew 20, verse 13, he said, friend, I'm doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what is yours and go your way. I wish to give this to the last man the same as to you. Verse 15, I think key verse here is it not lawful for me to do what I wish with my own things? Or is your eye evil because I'm good? So the last will be first and the first last. Many are called, but few chosen. Anyway, so I think that what Robert F. Smith did was very generous. His altruism was tremendous. But altruism is only from individuals. It's not from government. If altruism is from government, that's communism.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he had a right to give whatever he wanted to these people. And so this is kind of a thought to the students who complain about this. Hey, we worked and, we had to pay for our way. Well, I had the Marine Corps pay for my way, too. But anyway, but they really don't have anything because they agreed to pay whatever they paid for college. And he wanted to do what he wanted to do with his money, and he could give this to them. And bless him for doing that. So, yes, the answer is yes and no. Free college, yes. Free college, if somebody wants to pay for it, that's good.
Yeah, Randy, I think you bring up a really great point in the fact that, you know what, we're all been given talents and proclivities and skill sets by the Lord. And how we choose to invest those is our own doing, but know that there's going to come a time that he's going to ask for them and what we did with them. And the last thing that I want to do is be the guy that buried it in the ground. So I want to invest it well, whether that means paying off debt or that means going to school. But we'll be back right after this.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
American credit card debt has now topped $1 trillion, and most of the people in debt don't pay off their credit cards and thus pay very high interest rates. But never fear. Socialists, Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez have introduced legislation to provide some relief. Their bill would limit what credit card companies could charge in interest rates. Although the Bible and even various theologians have warned against usury, I don't think that is the origin of their concern for the Loan Shark Prevention Act. Instead, they merely think that government should be a solution to any social problems in society. Most Christians would instead suggest that providing biblical counseling on money would be a better solution. High interest rates are being charged by credit card companies, but also by payday lenders. In previous commentaries, I've talked about how some of these groups prey upon poor Americans who need to borrow money before their next paycheck. These interest rates being charged seem exorbitant until you realize that some of the people borrowing money have a poor track record in repaying the loan. By the way, these two socialists aren't through. They also want the U.S. Postal Service to provide basic banking services so that poor people don't have to pay banks a monthly service fee. This would be the same U.S. Postal Service that loses about $5 billion each year and lost a record $15 billion in 2012. Let's just say that the post office might not be the best model for sound financial management, and postal workers don't need to be given the responsibility of becoming bank tellers. These bills and proposals once again illustrate the mindset of some members of Congress who are convinced that the best solution to any social, political, or economic issue is more government. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
For a free copy of Kirby's booklet, A Biblical View on Anti-Semitism, go to viewpoints.info/anti-Semitism. Viewpoints.info/anti-Semitism.
You're listening to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
And welcome back to Point of View. I'm your host, Nick Pitts, on this. You know what today is, y'all? You know what today is, Monica?
It's Tuesday.
It's Mr. T's birthday.
What?
It's Mr. T's birthday. He says, treat your mom right. Do
Yeah.
you guys remember that? Do you all remember that
do.
commercial of treat your mom right? That's Mr. T. It's his
Wow.
birthday. So we need to go ahead and tell Mr. T happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Mr. T, if you're listening, you got a big fan here. I have been a big fan of Mr. T for quite a while. And yeah, so I would love for you to call in. We'd be sure to make sure that you can make something happen. But nevertheless, so happy birthday, Mr. T. But for those of you that are still paying attention, we have been talking about free college. This all stemmed from the generous act of Robert Smith, Morehouse College commencement speaker, phenomenal businessman, managing principal, I would assume just the top guy over at Vista Private Equity Group, makes this generous gift of $40 million to Morehouse College, over $40 million really, eliminates the student debt for the class of 2019, and now it's spawned this conversation as to, is this just a great act that was done to cover over a horrible policy that has perpetuated, one, the rich getting richer, and two, students having to go further and further into debt, which raises the question during the 2020 campaign season as to, should college be free or not? And so we've been taking some of your phone calls right now. And just so you know, we're going to continue taking your phone calls. You can call in at 800-351-1212. Again, that number is 800-351-1212. But know this, I'm going to start talking back. Here's what you need to know, though. Like at the end of the day, I don't think college should be free. There's no such thing as a free lunch, right? Even if we are to make it free, at the end of the day, it's still not going to be free. Taxpayers are going to support it, and taxpayers are going to fund it. So I don't think college should be free. But I think we need to raise some questions here. So let's jump on the phone lines, shall we? Let's go to Jeff in California right now. Jeff, are you there?
Yes.
Hey, Jeff, what's your point of view, my man?
Yeah, well, I think if college was free, say a lot of us want to become doctors, then I think the quality would go down because, if college was free and I wanted to be a doctor and I do get my certificate, customers are going to want to see where I graduated from, what kind of a degree I got. So I don't know. I don't know what's your take on that.
Well, Jeff is a non-medical doctor, as in I can't make a diagnosis. I can just give you a good book recommendation. I can tell you that it has gone down because I'm just kidding. No, but Monica, you were just literally making this point.
I was just saying this, Jeff.
Like you would not want a medical doctor to have a free.
That would make me really nervous.
You want someone that's going to have to work for it because it shows a bit of wherewithal and grit, right?
There may be not as much need for value in an art degree. That sounds harsh.
No, but it's
honestly,
true.
but if I'm gonna go to medical school, do pre-med, then do all of the schooling to get there, I would want someone who would know the value of that work, the money that they're spending, really take it serious so that when they're practicing their medicine, they have worked really hard and earned that degree versus someone who got it for free, you know?
Well,
know the value of that work. Yeah, and at the same time, I think that, if that happens, then, I think if somebody was to try and say the school was like 15 or 18 years like that one gal, now what happens when she's almost at the 10th year and she wants to quit?
Yeah.
So I think that gives people an opportunity to try different schools for free to see what they would what would fit them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but here, Jeff, thanks so much for your call. So Monica, help me understand this for a second, because I think we can all agree that college is a valuable, it's not necessary, because I know certain people that I graduated high school with, that college was not for them. They just needed to be in the workplace. They didn't, they were much better suited to just go find a job that didn't require a college education, because college is not the silver bullet. My grandfather got an 8th grade education, and he did very well with his life. And so college isn't for everybody, but college is for some people. And do you think what can be done? Do you have any ideas as to what can be done to help students not graduate? Because this debt is just ridiculous. I'm just going to be honest. The debt's ridiculous. $29,000 for a 21-year-old, 22-year-old. It's almost like indentured servanthood to a certain degree. I remember a New Yorker article that was referencing that a few years back. They said that college loan debt is the new indentured servanthood. So help us understand. Help me think through ways. How can we lower? Is there a role that the government can play? Is there a role that society can play that can lower the cost of this crazy amount of debt that college students are graduating with?
I think it has to go back to the education. It's so funny we're talking about education, but really educating the students on what kind of debt they would incur. I know we live in a world, I mean, when we graduated high school forever ago, let's not tell them, but it was, what school are you going to? Was it a state school? Was it a top school? What was the education like? There's a competitive nature when you're that age. If I could go back and I wasn't on a scholarship, I would have totally gone to a community college, gotten the basics, then transferred to save money. Too many students don't do that. They go straight into a school they can't afford. They transfer out of state, paying out of state tuition. There's so many things like that we don't think about or necessarily, I think, educate our children on the importance of, and why that would cause more, as well as scholarships, something that was mentioned that we talked about with someone on the phone today, just educating on what scholarships are available. There's a lot of scholarships for minorities that I think a lot of minorities are completely unaware of. So to make the argument of not being able to have the same opportunity or same ability to gain a scholarship as someone else that's not a minority, you actually have a lot more if you really were to look into it, especially at state schools. Private schools, it's a little different, but in a state school, there's so many that you can get by checking a box and doing your homework and researching those out. It takes a little bit more time and effort, but on the back end, it saves you a lot financially in that.
Yeah, I think you make good points. There's two areas that I think I would address. I think there's one, I think there's the student side, and then two, I think there's the institutional side, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the student side is, like you said, you said really well, and you covered a lot of the bases. It's the understanding of there's a lot of students that are leaving money on the table right now just because they're not fully aware of kind of some of the foundations and some of the grants and some of the scholarships that are available to them, as well as there was one listener that sent me an email, or maybe one of our producers sent me the email about even just the idea of what's it called, the GI Bill that allows individuals to do that, like the opportunity to be able to serve in that place. I think that's a phenomenal understanding. But then also on the school side as well, this kind of the bloating of the institutional budget right now. One of the things that I'm haunted by, and working at Dallas Baptist University, we go to great lengths. And this is going to be a commercial. I'm not even going to be ashamed about it. I'm going to make this a commercial right now.
I'm a DBU grad.
We go to great lengths to make sure to try to do everything that we can to make cost-cutting measures to make sure that a lot of the money that's not only given to us, but the money that we expend at the university level goes to make sure that it goes to students as well. And we've lowered our tuition down to really we're one of the lowest tuition offering institutions within Texas private education area.
Love it.
And so the bloating of kind of the administrative budget to a certain degree. And then two, like we just have like the amusement parkification of these. And so I'm worried about that as well. I think there's some opportunities there. But something that haunts me is a study that was out by a guy at Harvard that indicated that private institutions of higher education, half of them are going to be eliminated. Half of them are going to go out in the next 10 years. That's a staggering number.
That's crazy.
That's a staggering number.
Yeah.
Of half
Terrifying,
the colleges
honestly.
and higher education institutions will be gone in 10 years.
Yeah.
That's a staggering number right now, because you see it with the low birth rate, because there's less students that are that more colleges are having to vie for, but also just the rising costs of what it means to be in the business of higher education right now, with less state sponsorship, less funding going from states. And so those are a couple of things that we have to talk about, but we've got to go to a break right now. So we're going to transition a little bit.
Let's do it.
Because let's just go to something. Let's go to something different. Okay. So we're talking about how it's so expensive to go to college. Let's continue with that theme of pessimism. Let's go to an article in Bloomberg that indicated that millennials and Generation Z are increasingly pessimistic.
Yeah.
In a shocking twist, we're increasingly pessimistic right now. Generation
Totally
Z,
shocking.
millennials, diminishingly poor view of business. 43% of millennials are dissatisfied with paychecks, and 34% of Generation Z. We're going to talk about that for a little bit, but first we've got to go to a break. But if you'd like to find out information on this article, you can go to the Point of View website, pointofview.net, or you can go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/pointofviewradio, or you can stick around and we'll be talking about it. But we got to go to a break now. But when we come back, pessimism. The glass is half empty. My goodness. We'll be back.
Why should you become a partner with Point of View Radio? Because for decades, this team has made a significant difference in lives and communities across the nation. Because America is dying for lack of biblical wisdom about life and culture. You should give because your gift will make possible cutting-edge information on issues that matter, information you won't hear anywhere else. Why? Because your gift will change lives, because you'll influence our culture with biblical truth, and because you can make a difference for the future. Our nation needs a truth team very badly. Support Point of View Radio today at pointofview.net. Click on Join the Truth Team and choose your level of support. Pointofview.net, or call 800-347-5151. 800-347-5151, or mail that first donation to Point of View, Box 30, Dallas, Texas 75221. Box 30, Dallas 75221. Point of View will continue after this.
You are listening to Point of View. The opinions expressed on Point of View do not necessarily reflect the views of the management or staff of this station. And now, here again is
Nick Pitts.
Welcome back to Point of View. I'm your host, Nick Pitts, on this Mr. T's birthday of May 21st, 2019. It's the Millennial Roundtable. We have been talking about student debt, specifically the question that has been looming based on a New York op-ed that was covering, or in response, I should say, to the generous act by Robert Smith over the weekend to to pay off the student debt of the Morehouse College class of 2019. Should college cost money? And we're going to transition a little bit, but here's how we're going to transition, because I would argue that a significant source of pessimism and the blues, I guess you would say, if you are the Doobie Brothers, would be that student debt is just kind of weighty on individuals. I know a lot of my friends are just, it's that time you get your first big paycheck after you get out of college, but then you realize that average student loan payment is around $350, and so that's
if they get a new car,
that's another big chunk, and so all that to say, Deloitte just recently came out with a study, and it was covered in Bloomberg. We went ahead and posted it on the website. Millennials and Generation Z are increasingly pessimistic about their lives. Now, partially, this probably is because student debt is just a part of it. And so I want to highlight some things. And then, Monica, we're going to let you take a side of the argument, if there's even an argument to be made, or we're just going to kind of tease out what some of the research is finding as to why this is happening. So the percentage of respondents who think that businesses are making a positive impact dropped 6 points from 61% in 2018 to 55% today. And so you've got an increasingly large number of individuals within these younger generations that are saying businesses aren't necessarily making a positive impact on the communities. Your thoughts?
I would agree that that's a true statement. Only because this generation is so cause-driven and so passionate. So they are seeing things that previous generations haven't seen. They have an expectation that I will say is a bit unrealistic for their lack of experience and age and wisdom and knowledge. But I'm not surprised by that dropping 6 points at all.
It's like crazy how much. So the research is very clear. It's crazy how much they expect businesses to like and that's
in general.
That's the thing I always hear on conservative radio, or I'll hear talking heads on TV. They'll say, I don't know why Dick's Sporting Goods is taking this political stand. I don't know why Apple's taking this stand. Well, they're in the business of giving customers what they want. And what customers increasingly want is for them to take political stands. But what we're finding is that even though they take these political stands, it doesn't necessarily move the needle, in particular with some of these things. Like even like I'm reminded of Dick's Sporting Goods. We'll use that for example. Like they took the political stand and they were rewarded in it. Like everyone thought, well, everybody's going to boycott Dick's Sporting Goods because they took the stand of gun control. They got rid of some guns. But what happened? Like, no, they just got a lot more people that were going to buy sneakers instead of buy guns at Dick's Sporting Goods.
It's a marketing move at this point.
Yeah, it's like it's highlighting a particular need. And so and then we're saying that even though they're going to support it, it doesn't necessarily change anything relative. We'll just use the gun control. Like I disagree with Dick's Sporting Goods on their gun control, but nevertheless, they can take the stand, but it's not necessarily moving into action. Is that kind of the thing you're thinking about right now?
I think so. I think that, being on social media, seeing people post, there's always so much happening in our worlds that we can talk about, but they're taking this really aggressive perspective and stance without really having the wisdom, education, or experience to really justify what they're saying. So it's saying to an organization that maybe isn't taking the same stance that they're not making an impact. But did you really take the time to really be educated and informed on what everything else they're doing that may be making an impact as well? So I think that statement, that statistic is strictly from what they're seeing in media and what they're seeing on news and what they're able to have access to. And I think if organizations were more vocal, then maybe it would rise, because I'm sure every organization is making an impact in some way and gives back in some way and has that part of their DNA and culture. I would hope, at least large organizations.
I think it's like the crazy thing when I think about it, just because, well, I don't want to say crazy. The interesting thing when I think about it is just that businesses have helped bring us to a place of prosperity, especially here in the U.S. right now. That is unbelievably like the unemployment rate is at record low levels right now. The poverty rate is at record low levels right now. Homelessness has continued to go down, I think, for the third straight year this year. We're starting to see there's more there's just so many of these metrics that we would argue lead are points of the good life have continued to go down, and businesses have been a part of that as well.
Yeah.
And I even think, so for example, DBU just had their graduation, and I know I'm making this into a DBU commercial. I apologize. DBU just had their graduation this past week, and so on Friday I made my way over because I was going to see a friend before, and Sam Johnson was in the crowd. Sam Johnson, for some of our listeners that are aware, was served in the House of Representatives for almost 3 decades, or did serve for 3 decades, almost served for 30 years. And he was one of the key leaders to help allow businesses to receive tax deductions when they give charitable contributions.
That's awesome.
And I think about now, that's just like parlance for it.
Yeah.
Like, you expect companies to have a corporate social responsibility.
Yes.
And many millennials are looking for that
They are.
when they join an organization. They don't just simply want to know how to make a widget. They want to know how this widget making place is benefiting the community that they find themselves in. And I'm just shocked when I see this pessimism that comes from them relative to businesses making a positive impact.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not shocked, just because I have nieces that are Gen Z. Okay, so I just am around them, and I see how they talk and their friends, and just their communication about things. It's the passion. It is the passion that just precedes the knowledge and the awareness and the actual reality that's taking place. And so I do think that it's almost not enough. What you stated was absolutely true.
Yeah.
Everything that businesses have done has been so helpful, and anybody over the age of 40 would be like, this is amazing. This is silly. But under the age of 30, I would say maybe 35, 30, there is that pessimistic viewpoint, simply because they have an expectation, again, unrealistic, but they're comparing it. It's almost a lose-lose. I say every business out there, organization, it's a lose-lose with this generation.
Well, here's another fascinating, and they utilize I can't get no satisfaction, so shout out Aerosmith. So percent of individuals who plan to leave their current organization in the next 2 years.
Oh yeah.
And so dissatisfied with pay, 43% of millennials. Now, I'll offer qualm with that, because I can understand that to a certain degree, because I know that though the unemployment rate is at record lows right now, the underemployment rate, individuals that are overqualified, whatever that term means, overqualified for their job, is at a pretty high level right now. And so I can understand that to a large degree. What I can't understand, though, is this lack of learning and opportunities. I don't know if that's because they're just at smaller organizations. I don't know if it's because they're not looking for those opportunities and they're just checking out. I'd be interested. Like, when you see this I can't get no satisfaction list, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are that I'm a little confused, I'll be honest, when I saw that about even the pay, because I would say I would take a pay cut any day to do something I love, that I feel I'm really gifted in, that's making an impact, that's aligned with how God wired me and gifted me to operate. And if I need to make more money, then I have the capacity and the ability to go get a side hustle or do something else to cover the extra amount that I'd want monthly. So to me, there's just so much entitlement in that list when I look at it. And it's all of the stereotypes we hear about our generation, but it makes me a little worrisome for Gen Z to see that they are feeling it more than us, and a little bit, they're more passionate, more expressive. I mean, their opinion, I was a little surprised that it's above the millennial.
Boredom. Like, the boredom is the thing that's striking to me. 21% of people feel bored at work. Like, if I get bored, like life, and maybe it's a vision from God, and then a part of Tim McGraw being ingrained in my soul, saying that you've got to live like you're dying. Like, I'm keenly aware that my days are numbered, and I don't want to be bored. So if I get bored, I'm just going to go look for something else to do.
Find something to do. Exactly. My question is, what's happening in the school system or in the home for you to be bored at work?
Just go get something done.
There is always something to do.
Or here's an interesting one: poor work and life balance. So 22% of millennials said that there's a poor work and life balance, which I can kind of understand to a certain degree, just because the millennials highly value relationships over that. But so I guess it's just awakening to the reality that you have to go into work. I don't know. I don't want to be too harsh on my fellow millennials. But I do see cause for great concern with this. But we've got to go to a break right now. But has becoming tradition, we're gonna work in a little segment. It's news you can lose here in the next segment. So I've got a great little thing that we'll talk about here shortly, and eventually we're going to get some like sound to make the news you can use segment become a reality. But we've got to go to a break right now. But when we come back, news you can lose. We'll be back right after this.
Welcome to the First Liberty Briefing. I'm Jeremy Dice. On Ash Wednesday, it is common to see individuals bearing the mark of the cross on their foreheads, part of a religious tradition reminding the faithful of their own sinfulness and the atoning work of Christ on the cross. Evidently, not everyone understands that. William McLeod, a fourth grader at Valley View Elementary School in Utah, is Catholic. He showed up to school on Wednesday morning with the traditional mark of the cross on his forehead. His teacher took him aside, handed him a wet cloth, and instructed him to wash his forehead clean. He attempted to explain the reason for the mark, but to no avail. William spent the rest of his school day embarrassed and upset. Later, school administrators responded to complaints by his family, and the teacher apologized. Students are free to exercise their faith, even at school, so long as doing so does not interfere with the educational mission of the school. A harmless, silent mark of ash on one's forehead does nothing to prevent such instruction. Situations like this show how afraid school officials have become of any display of religion in school. As one court wisely put it, in situations like these, quote, the school's proper response is to educate the audience rather than squelch the speaker. In other words, they should teach, not censor. To learn how First Liberty is protecting religious liberty for all Americans, visit firstliberty.org.
Hi, I'm Kelly Shackelford, President and Chief Counsel of First Liberty Institute. You can protect your religious freedom by going to firstliberty.org to download your free Religious Liberty Protection Kit. Our attorneys created kits for churches, ministries, Christian schools, military members, students, and teachers, and the workplace. Get your Religious Liberty Protection Kit at firstliberty.org. That's firstliberty.org.
Now, back to Point of View, your listener-supported source for truth.
And welcome back to Point of View. I'm your host, Nick Pitts, and we are transitioning into the segment of News You Can Lose. That's right, News You Can Lose. And if there was some music that we could have for that, we would totally have it. But we need to address a pressing issue right now before we move on to the News You Can Lose, because a question has been posed to us that I want to entertain for approximately 45 seconds. So how would free education benefit the country? Now, I guess you would, if I was operating from a particular mindset, we'll call it a Rousseau mindset. So if I have Rousseau's mind and I'm thinking that kind of stretching all the way back to Plato believing that the highest individual within a particular community is the philosopher king, this individual that is contemplating by himself on a particular island, separated from himself, in order that he might be able to think and make decisions because he is the most intelligent individual. And so it kind of presupposes the idea that knowledge is the highest end, knowledge being the highest end, being this idea that what we think about And the knowledge that we've been able to accumulate allows us to make the smartest decisions. And that's the really, especially from the Christian mind view, you would say, they would argue that the reason why people make bad decisions, the reason why people are evil, is because they don't know good. Well, from the Christian understanding, we would say that Rousseau's wrong, right? Rousseau would say that it's institutions, it's institutions and it's other things that make us bad. Well, the Christian would understand from Augustine, he would say, well, no, we're just inherently bad. Like, there's no amount of thinking, there's no amount of education that's going to make us right. I know what's right, and that's what Paul says in Romans 7. I know it's right, and I still don't do it. Like, just because I have a watch that tells me how few steps I've taken doesn't necessarily make me any more healthy. And so to circle it all the way back, to stretch back 2,000 plus years, when I'm thinking about how would free education benefit the country, I think there's a value in individuals being educated and informed. I think Jefferson even talked about the need for an educated citizenry. But I think the detriment would be that education in and of itself is not sufficient. That even Martin Luther King would have that argument, that he would say it's the buildup of intelligence plus the development of character that leads to the wholeness of a particular man. And I think part of that development of character comes not from simply giving people a handout or giving people a free education. It comes from working diligently outside the classroom, having those character shaping experiences like work, like going through difficulty, that allow us to be able to put to use that knowledge that we've learned inside the classroom. But with all that being said, let's move to news you can lose now. And what we're finding is that a recent study came out that said more Americans think moving is more stressful than a week in jail. And so, okay, here we go. In fact, about 1 in 5 Americans, 23%, think that moving is more stressful than planning a wedding, according to research. 27% think that it's more stressful than a job interview. 13% even go so far as to say it's more stressful than a week in jail. So when you think about moving,
I hate moving.
Oh, really? Here we go.
I hate it. I am with these Americans.
Okay, so right now,
minus jail.
Okay, minus jail. So you're not one of the 13.
I would not go to jail. I would never go to jail.
You wouldn't go to jail.
That's one of my biggest fears. I'm not going to lie.
Jail? Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to ever go to jail. I hire movers though. I am that girl who will hire the movers, pay the money, don't care how much it is. Come box my stuff for me.
Oh, wow. So even box stuff.
Well,
so it's like going far.
It depends. I've had people box it.
Okay.
I've literally gone that far to say, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And if I have the money, I would gladly spend it for someone else to do it. I'm not lifting a thing. You're going to lift it for me. I'm going to tell you where to put it in the house. Okay. Thank you very much.
There it is. Okay.
And
so here's an interesting study that tell me if this rings true to you. So among Americans that moved in 2015, according to the research, it took them an average of 2.5 months to pack up everything.
What?
And 4.5 months to unpack everything. No, that's
I'm
not
OCD.
you?
I am an OCD, organized freak.
Okay, so you're like
everything has its place.
Everything overnight, everything's packed up.
Yes.
And then first night, everything's
You think
unpacked.
I'm kidding? I'm not.
You're not?
I am like 2 days before we're packing, it's packed. And then when I get home, by the end of that day, I want everything unpacked and in its place.
Okay.
Boxes out the house.
Okay, so we're going to keep on with this. I think this is fun. So, do you think this is an interesting question? Do you think Americans move more or less than what they did in 1948?
Way more.
We move more. You think so?
Yes.
Okay. Well, shockingly enough, Rascal Flatts may be moving on, but not Americans. 11.2% of Americans moved between 2015 and 2016. In 1948, that number, 20.2%.
Wow.
So then you're thinking, okay, well, maybe they moved their house. Well, here again, concerning shorter moves within the country, 6.9% of Americans moved in 2016 within the county.
Wow.
In 1948, that number was 13.6%. I
can't believe it.
So there was a book called Who's Your City, and said and Richard Florida he gives he says that there's 3 different types of people within cities right now.
Mm-hmm.
He says that you've got your mobile, you've got your stuck, and you've got your rooted.
Mm-hmm.
So your mobile people are the consultant types, and so you were a former consultant, and you were an individual that was out on Monday, back in on Thursday, and we're just there for the weekend, then you were out. So you were jet setting, and even if you were in for the weekend, you had so many points, et cetera. You were everywhere. You really didn't know your community. You're just everywhere. Very few obligations community. Those are the mobile people.
Yeah.
Then you've got individuals that are the stuck people. Those are individuals that are in less than desirable jobs, if they're in a job, and they're in bleak communities where there's not a lot of opportunity from an economic standpoint. So they're just kind of stuck there. And then there's the rooted people. When I think about rooted people, these are the people that smell like your community.
Yes.
This is my brother.
This is my parents.
This is like, they don't have anybody in the local high school, but they're still rooting for the local high school team when it comes to, I guess it would be soccer, right? Or baseball season is happening right now. And so those are the people that are blessing their community. They're very invested, heavily invested in their community. And what we know with Jesus is that he is a person that smelled like his community, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I want to be. Like, I want to be the person that understands the needs of my community, seeks the welfare of my city, loves my neighbor, and is able to do so in such a way that brings distinctiveness and weightiness to my community. Yeah. And I think that was so when I think about moving causes great stress, but belonging brings great comfort well. And
that's
so
a word.
For us, it's if only I was good at Twitter. If only so for us, you might be stressed out at the prospects of moving. You might want to go to jail instead of moving. According to 13% of Americans want to go to jail. I can't believe that. But know this, that even any type of stress that moving brings you, there's far greater comfort in belonging to your community. And so with that being said, that is your News You Can Lose segment for this Millennial Roundtable. And with that, we're coming to a close. And so, Monica, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
So great. So great to have you here. And so if you'd like to find out more information on Monica and some of the great work that she's doing at the Initiative Network, you can go to our website, pointofview.net. You can find out more information on Initiative, find out more information on Monica and all that she's up to. And then also want to encourage you to go to Facebook, facebook.com/pointofviewradio. That's not just a place where you can go watch Point of View. It's also a place you can follow along. Kirby puts out some phenomenal articles every day, and we've also got some other great little tidbits that we like to share on the Facebook page. And so you can go to facebook.com/pointofviewradio and be sure to like it so we'll be able to populate your news feed. I will not be with you tomorrow. So even though you started your week with me 2 days in a row, I'm going to give you a little break. And so I won't be with you tomorrow, but I'll be back here with you on Thursday. There's a great guest that's going to be joining you and a great show. I know that'll be a part of the Wednesday show. But for us here at Point of View, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you here tomorrow.
So you sit down and do your budget, and you look at all your monthly costs and your bills and your income, and it seems like there's never quite enough. You know what would really help? Finding $500 a month to help balance things out. That is the typical savings, $500 a month for a family when you switch to MediShare for your health care. And when it comes to healthcare sharing ministries, MediShare is really the gold standard. It's been around for 25 years and has more than 400,000 members. It's been around so long and grown so much because it works. And whether you're single or married or have kids, this could make sitting down to do a monthly budget a lot more fun. $500 a month can more than cover a car payment or pay back loans, whatever. So join MediShare and go out to dinner to celebrate. Here's the number to call. They are incredibly kind and helpful to talk to. 855-90-BIBLE. That's 855-90-BIBLE. 855-90-BIBLE.
Tired of fake news? Support truth. Join Point of View's Truth Team and bring healing to America. Go to pointofview.net/team. pointofview.net/team or 800-347-5151. Point of View is produced by Point of View Ministries.